Hey there everybody, it's been a while since I did a video, so I apologize. I have not been able to get my StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm, God of War Ascension, and Bioshock Infinite reviews as punctual as I would like to, and again, work has just been catching up with me, incredibly busy on my end with college studies and all that. And so, today I'm going to be doing a surprise review, or at least one I think is a bit of a surprise, of the Evil Dead remake. And just to make this clear, I just saw the original Evil Dead movies literally a few hours ago. I literally spanned every single one of the Evil Dead movies within the span of one night, and I figured I'm kind of obligated at this point to go see the remake. It's literally like 1:55 in the afternoon, almost 2, and just going to see the 2:30 showing because I refuse to go watch that at night and pay full price for it. So, just to set up context, I usually hate 99.9% things horror related, so I don't know what to expect with this one. I've heard people say it's incredibly gory and all that stuff, and hopefully I can endure this movie because I can't stand horror as a genre. I just hate the concept, I hate the execution, it's not a genre for me, I'll say this. So a lot of you might be asking, well, why the heck am I even going to see this movie? Because now that I've seen all the other Evil Dead movies, I feel like it is, again, an obligation to do it, or at least I should see it, just to see in context of what I think about it in terms of the other movies. With that said, I'm literally making this video literally as I'm about to walk out the door. I mean, just getting myself together, getting ready to see it, and I've got to say this, folks, I'm really not looking forward to this, but I've watched the Evil Dead movies, I've seen them at this point, and if you guys want me to do a review of the original Evil Dead trilogy, just let me know. I probably will as soon as I'm done with the other one, as soon as I'm done with the remake, that is. And so, just getting myself together, just getting myself to look at least spiffy, because, granted, I always try to look at least nice when I go to a movie theater. And so, I should hopefully see you in about 90 minutes with my thoughts on the movie. So, I will see you then.
Must wash away moving, must wash away moving. Come on. Doing? Alright, let's get this over with.
Evil Dead, the remake. Now, as I stated in the intro of this video, I was not looking forward to seeing Evil Dead. I mean, horror is just not my genre. It never will be my genre, and I just disdain the concept of horror, and I just don't understand people that like horror movies in general. I mean, I've heard people say that they enjoy the scaring sensation of it and just being scared, and that to me just makes no sense, but that's not the point of this video. It's time to get to what I actually thought of Evil Dead. Surprisingly enough, even though I hate 99.9% things horror-related, I actually did not hate this movie. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. Now with that said, let me go ahead and get into some of the good parts about this movie as well as the bad. First off, the production value is actually really impressive. I understand that the movie had a lot of practical effects going in, and it really shows how technically impressive the movie itself is. I mean, there were several moments during the course of this movie I was going, how the heck did they do that? And I won't spoil what some of those practical effects are, but they are really impressive. And just seeing, like, and I'm just trying to think of the process of how exactly they made this movie itself. That's really, it's just impressive. That's the best way I can describe the production value of this movie. It's impressive. All of it is pretty much practical effects, and none of it is CG, which, granted, I don't mind CG as a whole. I don't see a point in complaining about it. But the fact that the director of this, I think Fede Alvarez, I probably pronounced his name wrong, he went so far as to make this film almost all practical effects. I mean, I could not tell anything was CG if there was anything in it at all. And so that's a testament to the determination to make all of this as much practical effects as possible. Now, the story of Evil Dead is actually pretty simple to figure out. There's a whole group of kids that go up into this cabin in the middle of the mountains, or woods, I should say, and one of their friends, or one of the main girl, is actually recovering from a cocaine addiction, and during the course of their stay, she goes through withdrawal and kind of starts acting more and more crazy. And also, one of the other friends during the course of their stay finds this book, and a lot of people know this as the Necronomicon. I'm pretty sure the name is a little bit different in the movie, but I'm just going to call it that because that's what the other Evil Dead fans know it as. And so, reading from this book, which granted is incredibly stupid, he basically unleashes hell unknowingly upon everyone else in the cabin, including himself, and then just everything goes downhill from there and just gets progressively worse and worse from the entire point on to the rest of the movie. Now, one of the reasons I hate horror movies so much and horror as a genre is that it relies on the stupidity of humans in general in order to get its content. And sometimes when you're looking at this movie, you're just screaming at yourself, what are you doing? Are you so freaking stupid? It's just, you would think to yourself, that's like, I would never do that. I mean, it's like, sure, go in the middle of the basement where the rotting staircase is, just where the demon or ghost or whatever may it happen to be in the case, or in this case, a Deadite, I think. It's always really confusing to me what you call this thing in the middle, because is it a zombie, is it a monster, is it a demon, like what exactly is it? I've heard people refer to it as Deadites in the movie, so I'll just stick with that, a Deadite. This Deadite is in the middle of the basement, it's just like, what are you doing? Why are you going down there? It's just, no. I'm sorry, but just roast them or shoot them in the head or something, and put them out of their misery. And I'm not trying to sound like a cold-hearted bastard, but these people are way too emotionally attached to them. I understand the point of the plot, I understand those conveniences, but at the same time, when you just look at that and you just see the stupidity of these people, it's just like, ugh, it's just frustrating as hell. And another stupid thing, I can't exactly say what are all the stupid things that these people do, but another thing, like granted, okay, you've already probably seen the trailers to Evil Dead, so you already know that the person reads from the book and basically all hell breaks loose. And so when he reads from the book, it's like, what are you doing? The book itself says, don't read this, don't write this, don't say it out loud, whatever is in it. It's just like, why would you do this? It's just completely stupid in my opinion. However, I will give this movie that. The fact that the movie itself does not have a cast of unlikable characters. Sure, one of them may be a cocaine addict, or former cocaine addict, she's trying to get over this, but I can't think of a single character in this movie, aside from one who reads the book and is kind of a teacher in this movie. He's kind of a jerk, but everyone else is overall generally likable. I mean, you're kind of either indifferent to them or you like them. Bottom line, the characters themselves were okay as a whole. However, some of them all did really stupid things. Another thing I'll say this movie has going for it is another trope I usually have when it comes to disdaining horror movies, and that is, you ask yourself constantly throughout the rest of the movie, it's like, why don't they just leave? In this case, there are actually two legitimate reasons for why they don't leave, or why they can't leave. So I'll throw a bone to the movie for that. At least two legitimate reasons for why they couldn't leave. Now, one thing I have to mention in terms of this movie is that it is really, really, really bloody. I'm serious, there is a ton of blood and gore. Like, if you just faint at the sight of blood, I mean, you are going to hate this movie with a passion. I'm telling you this right now. Just spare yourself and your stomach. Now, one big problem I did have with this movie is the Necronomicon itself. Not the fact that it was a bad plot device, but the fact that it had no explanation as to how or why it got there. I mean, in the first set of movies, they had an explanation for why the book was there. It was because an archaeologist came to this cabin and found an excavation site and was going to this cabin in order to translate it. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. I mean, it would explain why that book got there. And unfortunately, it fell into the hands of these group of kids who unleashed everything that was inside that book. So it made sense. They were victims of circumstance and the fact that they were also, it gave an explanation for why the book was there in the first place. In this movie, no explanation whatsoever why the book is there. It's just there for the sake of convenience of the plot. It just doesn't explain at all. Now, I know that may not sound like a huge problem for some people, but when that's such a main element to the instigation of the plot, it just makes you wonder, like, how the heck did this thing get here? Also, there's some certain rules I feel like this version of Evil Dead is kind of dismissing that from the original movies. Now, I understand that every director is going to have their own little take on a certain subject matter, especially if it's a remake. I get that. Another cool thing I'll say about this movie is all the little nods it has to the original films. I mean, if you are an Evil Dead fan, you're going to notice some certain scenes or certain elements of the plot that appear during the course of the movie that just make you go, oh, I know what that is. That's actually really cool, the fact that they include that. Or there's certain explanations for why certain things happen, and they are nods to the original. I think another problem I have with this movie, and I know this sounds really silly for someone like me who is not a horror fan, the movie didn't actually scare me all that much. Maybe because I already knew what I was in for with seeing the first three films, and as well as being aware of kind of seeing the Red Band trailer, of knowing the kind of gore I was getting myself into, it just really didn't kind of scare me all that much. I mean, I understand that people are going to be scared by different things. That's perfectly fine. I don't know. Maybe I was just too well prepared to see this movie. That's probably the case. I was too well prepared. But that being said, I still felt like I got more legitimate scares out of seeing Evil Dead 2 or something like that than seeing the remake, because I felt like the remake was just going in for shock value with just this gore. And I'm not saying it's something like torture porn like Saw is, but this one is just like, it was going for so much blood and gore that it was kind of, I don't know, indulging itself. If I had to put my thoughts in the movie into one sentence, I would say it's definitely a movie I can respect its production and its little nods to the original and respect to the original. At the same time, I feel like this is kind of indulgent in itself. I don't know. It's really hard for me to sum up my opinions on this movie. So if my bottom line was going to come down to this, I'll have to say it had a really impressive production value, a likable cast for the most part. There's still the occasional douchebag. The scares were kind of absent. The gore was over the top. There's certain plot conveniences I wish I could say in this video that don't really make much sense. That I seriously can't say them for the sake of spoilers. I don't want to do that to you. But I think if you are really analytical in terms of plots, you might notice them. There's some sweet nods to the original. So with that in mind, I'm going to have to give this movie, like I did with my Penny and Stocking review, 2 ratings. One for myself, and one for horror fans. For myself, being a person who is not a horror movie fan, someone who may not ever want to see this movie again, or people who are not fans of horror movies. But aside from the very excellent production value, and the little sweet nods to the original, and the fact that it had at least a likable cast, or for the most part, I would have to say, watch this movie at your own risk. Especially if you're easily squeamish. I'm telling you this right now. Just don't see this if you have a weak stomach. But if you're a horror movie fan, like someone like my sister is, or maybe anyone else that you know that is a horror fan, or you yourself might be a horror fan, I would say it's worth watching, but not perfect. So everybody, that is my review of Evil Dead the Remake. I apologize again for the jumbled nature of this review. It's just, again, really, really hard for me to explain or convey my entire opinions on this, while at the same time trying to overcome my own biases against the genre itself and the idea. So to end on a little bit more of a fun note, let's discuss this. What's your favorite Evil Dead movie and why? And also, what's your favorite line from the Evil Dead movies? It can be any line whatsoever, including the remake. And my personal favorite of the Evil Dead movies is Army of Darkness. And my favorite line from those movies is this: "Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. I got news for you, pal. You ain't leaving but two things down here, Jack and shit, and Jack left town." I'm sorry, but that line is just great. I crack up every time I hear it. In any case, comment below, tell me what you think, and tell me what you like about the Evil Dead movies, or what you thought about this remake. And so, until next time everybody, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. You name it, I can play it.